Hey everybody, it's Monday, April 13th, 2026, day 45 of the U.S.-Iran tensions, we can say at this point. U.S. Navy has just activated a live naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz as of 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning. President Trump ordered Sentcom to begin the enforcement this morning, stopping all vessels tied to Iranian ports and coastal zones while allowing free passage for everyone else. We're seeing carrier strike groups, Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyers equipped with Aegis systems, submarines, patrol aircraft, and overhead air assets likely coordinating right now for tight surveillance and quick interdiction, similar to what we likely saw in the Venezuela conflict. And this coming in from Reuters. Pope says he will continue to speak out against war after Trump attack. In comments aboard his flight, where the first U.S. Pope is starting a 10-day tour to African countries, the pontiff said that the Christian message was being abused. I don't want to get into a debate with him, Leo told Reuters as he greeted journalists on a plane. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. He said, too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed, and I think someone has to stand up and say there's a better way. Okay, Pope, the one thing I would say, who's actually standing up for the free people of Iran where 45,000 of them have been murdered? And I think someone has to stand up and say there's a better way. Yeah, if only there was someone to stand up and say there's a better way for those free people of Iran that don't want to be murdered by a radical Islamic cleric. Yeah. I wish there was someone out there that could do that. Do you have any ideas, Pope? And then check this out. This is something that you guys got to know about. So Iran's leverage over the Strait of Hormuz isn't just about controlling the strait itself. Here's what they're doing, and this is wild. They have undergone a massive project that's underway right now. It could be close to completion for all we know, but they're building a new oil pipeline that goes from the north to the south end of their country along the coast so they can avoid the Strait of Hormuz. So they can just shut it down and not have to use it at all. Instead of using Karj Island, they can actually use this pipeline that's being built right now because they always knew at some point the Strait of Hormuz would be blockaded. So they've been planning for this for years. You can see it basically fully avoids the Strait of Hormuz. And then let's pop to the map real quick and do an overview of exactly what we're looking at geography-wise and where Iran is likely targeting these ships, or they might target the ports of their Gulf neighbors from using these Shahed drones. We're actually going to look at some areas where they're storing these Shahed drones. Here we are on the map, my friends. I want to bring you into where this blockade will likely be enacted here in just a few minutes from the time of this video being produced. So we know we've got the minefield right here in the Strait of Hormuz. So obviously avoiding that until we know the mine situation has been fully cleared out. And then if you look at these islands here, what Iran is likely going to do is potentially try to harass some of the different ships that are a part of the blockade. Good luck, right? We know Iran doesn't have much left, but Larak Island, this is called the Larak toll booth. This is where they are operating from mafia style, trying to collect those tolls, and we know they've directed the actual ships up near Larak. So if I was a betting man, I would say a lot of the different ships that will be harassing oil tankers, potentially trying to harass the U.S. Navy, will come from Larak. Lots of Shahed launch vehicle sites here, so this might be the actual area where Iran is launching a lot of those Shahed drones towards the actual oil ships themselves. So will Iran step that up and ramp that up? Well, with the ships now closer to the Iranian shore because of their minefield, at this point all bets are off. Will they unleash these Shahed drones again? We'll see here soon. The IRGC's Navy has fired back with heated rhetoric. They're declaring that no port in the Persian Gulf or Gulf of Oman will be safe if their facilities face any pressure. This aggressive chest thumping, it really reveals Tehran's pattern of escalation instead of compromise. Even as the 2-week ceasefire looks increasingly shaky after those marathon talks collapse, it highlights why the United States is going to have to project this clear strength because the regime continues chasing that nuclear desire to have a nuclear weapon, and now we could see this escalating into actually Iran targeting Gulf neighbor ports. So this is classic American sea power at work, and the coming hours of what happens next in this conflict could reshape the entire Persian Gulf. After those 21-hour negotiations collapsed, Vice President J.D. Vance made it pretty clear Iran rejected the core requirements, which centered around no nuclear weapons. Tehran pointed fingers at the U.S., saying that the U.S. had excessive demands. President Trump has responded now with decisive action, tasking the Navy through Sentcom to launch this precise blockade targeting Iranian-linked maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Let's go to X right now for the latest breaking news on what's going on with this blockade. Here we are on X, my friends, and check this out. So U.S. Central Command just dropped this yesterday. U.S. to blockade ships entering or exiting Iranian ports, and they go on saying the blockade will be enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, including all Iranian ports on the Arabian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. Sentcom forces will not impede freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. So is Iran going to open the conflict back up right now in the next few minutes? It's likely going to be a very deceptive campaign that they do. Whatever they do could include unmanned underwater vehicles, could include fast attack craft, even though most of those have been taken out. But the spokesperson right here has basically stated that no port in the Persian Gulf will be safe if Iranian ports are threatened, after the U.S. military announced a blockade of Iranian ports starting Monday. So this guy right here, he is the mouthpiece of the regime that's like, yeah, we don't want to lose our oil from China, because that's literally all that's propping us up. And remember, the inner regime itself, they are focused on keeping the IRGC happy. The politicians have to keep the IRGC happy, and the way they do that is with good old cash. They basically line their pockets to keep them acting as the muscle arm of the mullah and ayatollah class, which seems to kind of still have a stronghold. And then I have a little treat for you guys. So the IRGC, as they do, they put out this propaganda video, which I thought was relatively hilarious, basically showing the conflict go down should this whole port blockade take place, which looks like it is right now. So let's have a little view of this.
Yeah.
Oh, I want one of these aircraft carrier Legos, please.
Failed at the talks. Now they want to blockade the strait. Hormuz hustle. Hormuz hustle. You want to blockade us?
Hormuz hustle. Here we go. This is, I think Kanye is going to pick this song up eventually.
We already run the muscle. Blockade our blockade. Go ahead, try your luck.
Oh, they got a little mine up there. Check that out. So yeah, so they're focused on throwing that threat out there, the threat of the mines. That's one of the big things they still are holding on
You
to.
scared to come close, keep running. What the talks fell apart. Now you screaming blockade, but we already control the flow.
So I guess the aircraft carrier just like fell over somehow. Just tipped over.
The rate, every ship pays, total stays away from the gate. You threaten to stop us? Boy, you're way too late.
Oh, that one missile's firing backwards. Whoops. Oh man, weird. Sorry about that. We fired this one backwards.
Gas prices rising. Your allies in panic mode while we sit back laughing. Y'all dig
This guy, they've got cannons. They've got cannons along the cliffside.
in your own hole. You talk real big, but your navy stays far. Scared of our mines and missiles. That's who you are. Hormuz hustle. What happened to boots on the ground? Where's the invasion? You talk so tough.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh yeah, you guys should have invaded. That's what you should have done. Yeah, that's a strategic blunder. So that's what Iran would have wanted.
Now you're hiding in hesitation. You beg for ceasefire.
Wow, okay, I think we get the point here. They're saying basically the US is completely losing everything. So yeah, IRGC, just keep building your little pretty Lego sets, okay? And it's pretty clear when the US Navy shows up like this, Iran's ports are about to get the kind of long, firm pounding that they've been avoiding for years. And how Tehran reacts under this new pressure will change everything that happens with the conflict going forward, because Iran wasted no time labeling the blockade illegal piracy, with the IRGC releasing videos of their forces shadowing American ships and issuing warnings of wider retaliation. But the geography plays into this whole thing, showing that the showdown could happen with these two navies, with whatever's left of the IRGC Navy. I mean, at this point, is it basically a rowboat with a couple missile launchers on it? The IRGC is like, we're going to chase you down with our rowing team, because essentially we have nothing left with an engine. But this defiance from Iran, it follows repeated grifting and delays from the regime itself, potentially even some would say broken commitments during the fragile ceasefire that's now stretched thin on day 45 of the broader conflict. And Iran is saying that there is broken commitments because Israel continuously struck Lebanon after the ceasefire. For some reason, they thought Lebanon was a piece of the ceasefire, but JD Vance basically came out and said that was never on the table. But while the regime in Iran projects toughness, its economy is likely already feeling the strain from their disrupted oil flows, because remember, their oil hasn't been disrupted before. They've been able to continuously pump that oil to China, and it just was allowed to happen. So the regime is getting lots of money with what some have said is $100 million in revenue per tanker. But one wrong move from Tehran right now could ignite this powder keg that we've all been watching into an even bigger inferno. Let's break down the reality of what could happen if this actually goes hot. The US Navy's lineup, it demonstrates unmatched versatility and reach. The carrier strike groups act as mobile forward bases, launching fighters and support aircraft that maintain constant watch across hundreds of miles. Arleigh Burke class destroyers serve as versatile workhorses. Their Aegis radars deliver superior tracking, while missiles and guns handle surface or aerial threats with flexibility. Quiet submarines provide stealthy intelligence and positioning beneath the waves, where Iran has no idea that they're even there. Impossible for Iran to easily counter those submarines. Smaller patrol craft manage close quarters intercepts and boardings, and layered air support ranging from fast jets to maritime patrol planes and helicopters deliver persistent coverage of the busy strait and even the nearby coastlines, getting an even better view of what's going on in Iran. Basically being able to look into the window of the mullahs and be like, hey, what are you guys doing in there? You see one of the mullahs complaining to his girlfriend about his wife. She's just so demanding right now. Doesn't she know we're under a blockade? But these assets from the US Navy feed commanders instant information, enabling exact decisions that keep legitimate traffic moving while clamping down on Iranian activity. The result is a tightly woven professional network built on years of rigorous preparation and even a practice run when it came to Venezuela. And with all that hardware sliding into position, Iran's getting the kind of thorough cavity search screening that none of us were ready for this morning when we went through TSA. But if this layered net holds, the strategic chess match could shift the balance of power overnight. Here's how America is playing it. This targeted approach cleverly pressures Iran's finances by sealing off its ports along the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman without fully shutting down the entire strait. This is the 4D chess section if you haven't noticed already. The US Navy's dominance in open waters and choke points hands the US a decisive edge that shore-based forces can't really duplicate. By choking off oil income to the regime itself, Washington forces the regime to weigh the steep price of its nuclear goals and proxy activities against growing domestic strain and against domestic strain from the IRGC higher-ups themselves. Remember, the mullah class, the political class, they do everything they can to keep the IRGC happy by lining their pockets and basically keeping them from getting a little bit upset and showing up at their house in the middle of the night and killing them, while the IRGC is tasked to go out and kill dissidents within the country. The mullahs, they're smart. They realize they've got to keep paying off these IRGC mafia bosses if they are to survive and if their regime is to continue. At the same time, these routes need to be kept clear for non-Iranian shipping, and that protects worldwide energy stability and signals reliable American commitment when the talks stall, and it shows Iran that there's repercussions if they don't actually come to the table and make some concessions with their biggest programs. If this cutoff stretches, let's say, a full month, expect cascading effects, revenue shortfalls mounting rapidly, public discontent in Iran in an already burdened population that's already been put under a massive amount of pressure with a war, and reduced resources for Iran's militias or even their enrichment efforts. Such sustained pressure often compels even stubborn leadership towards realistic dialogue, underscoring how potentially measured strength backed by superior capability could advance U.S. interests in the area. This buys a little bit of breathing room and flexibility while the U.S. stays poised and ready. One spark, though, from Iran, they spark up one of these other ports and their Gulf neighbors, and in a few hours, this blockade could turn into something much bigger. Here's one realistic scenario of how this could go down. If tensions spike a few hours into the blockade and Iranian fast boat swarms try to challenge patrol groups near the Iranian coastline in the Persian Gulf, Arleigh Burke class destroyers would light up their Aegis radars, while carrier helicopters, maritime patrol aircraft provide constant overhead surveillance. F-18s would blast off of the different carrier strike group carriers, and they would go in and start attacking those fast attack craft. And then you could even target those fast attack craft with actual maritime assets. Think about the close-in weapon system, that radar-guided machine gun, and basically light up those fast attack craft. So overall, this could spark into something much bigger here in the next few hours. What do you guys think happens? I mean, Iran has said no port in the Persian Gulf or Gulf of Oman will be safe if this blockade that's in action right now is put into place. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Would love to hear your thoughts, and then go ahead and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. Click the link in the description, join the Max Ready Room, and then watch the next video that pops up right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.
তোমার এগুলো রেকর্ড করছে না, বুঝছো? এগুলো ডাইরেক্ট ভিডিও করে ভাই 2 থেকে 2.5 ঘন্টার মতো কথা বলছে, কথাগুলো দেখিয়ে দিয়েছে, শিখিয়ে দিয়েছে সম্পূর্ণ কিছু। আর এগুলো তোমার কাজ করবে 100% শিওর, কারণ তোমার দেখা গেছে যদি ভাই বলছে যদি একটাতে কাজ না করে, ভাইয়ের কাছে হাজারো ধরনের টপিক আছে আর কি, কন্টেন্ট আছে, তো একটা কাজ না করলে আরেকটা দিব। তো প্রথমে এখন একটা কন্টেন্ট দিছে আর কি, বলছে এটা দিয়ে কাজ করা লাগে, যদি কাজ না করে তাহলে অন্য কন্টেন্ট দিয়ে কাজ করাই দিব, কিন্তু কাজ করবে 100% শিওর। এগুলোতে কাজ করবে, সমস্যা নেই ভাই, যেভাবে বলছে এগুলোতে কাজ করবে।